Hello again, everyone. It's Sandy Boucher here once again with another episode of the Path Podcast. And this time we're talking about racial battle fatigue, what it looks like, what it feels like, what you may be dealing with if your colleague or coworker is battling with it, and in my opinion, the most important part, what you do if you're suffering from it. Let's talk about it. Bonjour, Mishko Paganon Kwe Nadishnakas Mangdodam. Hi, everybody. It's Sandy Boucher here once again. I'm Red Thunderbolt Woman of the Loon Clan, a proud member of Seine River First Nation in Treaty 3 territory in Northern Ontario. And as mentioned in the opening, this is the Path Podcast, yet again, where we get to sit back and relax and discuss things more in depth than I go into in my short daily videos. Now, that's intentional, by the way. The short videos, I learned a long time ago that people are really busy. And you got a family to run, or a family to look after, a house to run, a career, maybe your parents you're looking after, your young children. I mean, there's so many demands on our time. And because these things were not included, or more accurately, they were excluded from the education system, it's now on each and every one of us to take the time to learn this stuff, and who has time for that? So I make my daily videos short, just a little bite-sized piece of information that hopefully you can consider as you go about your day, and I leave the longer discussions for the Path Podcast. For those of you that are new, Path, like in my book, or like in the title of the podcast, is an acronym for what I call the 4 sacred or essential tools. If you want to successfully engage Indigenous, non-Indigenous relationships, you got to remember the 4 tools. The P is for patience. We're not figuring this out by next week. It's a learning curve. Often we're trying to work together respectfully for the very first time. As my elder used to always say, you're not going to figure this out by Tuesday. So be patient with the person you're working with and be patient with yourself. The A is for awareness. Be aware of what's going on for the people that don't look like you. What is going on in the Indigenous communities? Maybe that is a challenge they're having trouble getting past, and talking to you on a totally unrelated topic might be just asking too much at the time. So be aware. The T is tenacity. Don't give up. Don't give up. You might have to give up for today. You might have to take a break. You might have to come back at it tomorrow. But please come back. We need this change to happen. And you'll hear me say it 100 times. The H is for humility. Humility builds bridges. Ego burns them. Go into it with respectful questions. Those people that are, I've worked with so many First Nation communities, I know what I'm doing. That's the person that's going to land on their butt hard. I don't care how many First Nation communities you've been in. They're all different. The next one is going to be different. Do not set yourself up for a fall by assuming you have the answers before you meet the people. So that's the path. And as I mentioned, today we're talking about racial battle fatigue. This is so huge. I have 2 index cards. Racial battle fatigue is what we feel and suffer from on a daily basis, having to constantly deal with the racist comments, the jokes that aren't funny, and just as detrimental. Whoa, didn't turn off my alarm. Sorry about that. Whoa, that almost scared the daylights out of me. It's those microaggressions, the eye rolls, when someone looks at us or looks at us with our children, whatever the case may be. The point is, even if we don't react, even if we don't say anything, we feel it. And often by the time we make it to the office or to that coffee shop or we're meeting with you, we've already dealt with so much BS and it's just weighing on us. And I gotta say, at least from my experience, other people that have experienced racism, feel free to comment and let me know if this applies to you as well. But one of the things that makes it so hard and so exhausting, and that's the point, racial battle fatigue, it is exhausting. One of the reasons why I think it's so exhausting is because it's always from left field. I am not taken off guard by the people. If I go into a meeting and I'm expecting them to be problematic and maybe have some Indigenous stereotypes they're hanging on to, that's not going to exhaust me because I'm preparing for it. It is the unexpected eye roll, the unexpected joke that isn't funny. For example, and I think I mentioned this in a previous video, but I'm going to highlight it again. I recently went and bought a new car, and we were talking about the conditions, and I have a status card, which means I don't pay provincial sales tax in my province. Yes, I'm in Canada. So I mentioned that. Obviously, that's important on a purchase that size. We had been talking for 20 minutes. I'm totally dressed in a professional outfit, had just come from my event. There was no reason to believe that this conversation was not going to be professional and awesome and just what I needed it to be. But as soon as I mentioned that I had a status card, the one person looks to the other person, giggles, that little ha ha, and says, blonde hair and a status card. That's $6.49. Now, for those of you who are not from Canada, $6.49 is our big lottery. So what he was implying is it would be like winning the lottery to have a woman that's blonde and has a status card. Ick, make your skin crawl. Like, what? That comment was not appropriate. But and you know what? Let's not waste 1 second saying that should have never happened. We all know it shouldn't have happened. The point is, it keeps happening daily. Ongoing, that eye roll, that person long before COVID and lockdown was a thing, to have a cashier pass your change and not want to touch you because of your darker skin. Like, I mean, it's all these little things. And I also do not want to hear from the people that are defending. Hang on, I got to kick a cat off my desk before she disconnects my computer. I don't want to hear people defending the people that do the eye rolling, because here I am. Remember the back-to-back teaching? This is what we see on a regular basis. We need it to change. If you want us to be able to work together, this has to change. So quit defending the people that are doing things they shouldn't be doing, even if they don't intend. Intent is not required to be problematic. But now you know, so stop doing that. It's kind of like the inappropriate terms. So imagine this person, me, trying to get to your office, and I've heard some joke on the radio, and I've seen a poster that has some connotation to it that's problematic, run into people that had the eye rolls, didn't like my jewelry or my skirt or whatever the case may be. Now we're starting to feel exhausted. So I'm going to get my amazing new videographer to throw in the picture of the cat and the bird here. That's what it feels like. That no matter where we go, we're judged by how we speak or don't speak, how educated we are, how many kids we have, how many baby daddies they assume we have, our postal code. Try wearing secondhand clothes. They're going to judge you. It's just the judgment is ever present. And that's why often when someone says something, It feels like the straw that broke the camel's back. And maybe that's happened to you. You've said something. Maybe you were goofy enough to make that joke that isn't funny, and you got your head bit off. And now you think, now we got the angry Indigenous woman stereotype going on. It was just the straw that broke the camel's back. So in some cases, people bite your head off, reaction to the environment that we're trying to grow in. I'm not saying that that's appropriate. It's just shouldn't be surprising. On the other side of the fence, they're going to ghost you. You're just never going to see them again. They're not returning your phone calls. They're not going to make the meeting because they now believe that trying to work with you is useless. That if you can tell those kind of jokes, there is no bridge to be built here. That is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. You wonder why Indigenous people don't want to come out of the communities? It's the only place in Canada that doesn't have anti-Indigenous racism. We have lateral violence. We have other issues. Do not get me wrong. But no one's going to call you down for being Indigenous in a First Nation community because so are they. And by the way, they're probably not going to call you down for having someone in your family with a drinking problem because they have someone in their family with a drinking problem. And if there's someone incarcerated, they know someone incarcerated. It's just the escape that we so often need. And like I said, in the communities, you're going to deal with a whole other pile of garbage. But it's not this garbage, the racial battle fatigue. So often what it leaves you with is zero or next to zero coping skills. You have just dealt with so much crap by the time you get to whatever engagement you're going to that it makes it really hard to be able to engage or even have any patience for someone who says something or does something that they shouldn't. So I don't know if you've ever, my daughter first told me about this, and I believe it was used originally, and again, I might be wrong, with autistic children, and it's the idea of the spoons, and that you're given 5 spoons at the beginning of the day, and as you go through the day, emotionally, you're using up your spoons. So you can ask a child how many spoons you got left. And if they're in a good place, they got 4 or 5. If they've had a rough morning, they've had 1 or 2. And I've actually suggested that in First Nation communities because we're all suffering under this oppression. Maybe before the workday starts, check with your colleagues or coworkers. You know, how many spoons do you have? What kind of place are you in today? I know in my office, I've done that a few times with my staff, just because I know what kind of personal challenges they're going through. And I don't want to expect a ton of stuff from them if they've only got 2 spoons left. And by the way, if anyone just went to, but you're getting paid to do a job, no. If you are that unfeeling of a human being that you don't even care that someone is struggling, then I hope you realize your position is one of them that could be replaced by AI. Because if you've already gotten to the robot stage, what's the diff? Now, I've been lucky enough that actually the one and only job I ever got fired from is the one and only job I had for a non-Indigenous for-profit company. Totally against my values. I may have got fired, but my children were thrilled that I got fired because they were really worried about my mental health trying to work in that environment. When my mom passed away and I got taken out at the knees, I was the executive director of a nonprofit Indigenous agency, and for 6 months they had my back. And it only ended after that because I was in a better place, not because there was a time limit. There were so many days where I was on my commute to the office and just lost it, the waves of grief, and called in and said, you know what, I just can't do it today. And they were like, that's okay. Try again tomorrow. You go take care of yourself. That's, I think, why Indigenous are so known for their loyalty. It's because we have those kind of environments where you're allowed to be human and people understand when you're struggling. Long story short, Don't hate us for biting your head off. Don't hate us for not having coping skills. Don't judge us for bringing emotions to the table, because if we did, we probably had no choice. We're being emotional with whatever's going on. How about instead, ask us how we're doing. Ask us how many spoons we have. So I want to take the rest of this time. That was about 15 minutes, so I'm about halfway through here. I really want to speak to the people experiencing racial battle fatigue. Because at 59 years old, if there's one thing I know for sure, sitting there and wishing that someone else would behave differently only leaves you helpless. We have no power over how someone else behaves. I am a huge fan of building up coping skills. I believe we need to train our children in coping skills. If they're going to go away to school and leave the community and get hit with anti-Indigenous racism for the first time, we need to train them and educate them on how to handle that. We need to give them the skills. Sitting back and just praying it's not going to happen will not help until we get to the point where it doesn't happen anymore. I would rather prepare my child, pack a good canoe so they're prepared for whatever comes next, than just pray that nothing bad happens. I want them to have the tools they need, and we need to have the tools we need. So a couple of things, as you can well imagine, every now and then, I get a heavy dose of racial battle fatigue. I have it to a certain extent every day just because of the nature of my work, even including the comments that I get sometimes here on YouTube. So I have had to build, your self-care game is your self-love game, right? Like I can tell how much you value yourself by how well you take care of yourself. And just because of the nature of the work I do, I have had to boost my self-care game way up. I now have epic self-care skills. I maybe still don't kick it into gear as fast as I should sometimes. I know the last week was incredibly rough for me, but I can acknowledge that without beating myself up. So a couple things to remember. First off, one of the mentors and trainers I follow, Brenda Bouchard, my business survived lockdown because of what I learned from that man. Check out GrowthDay if you're so inclined. But one of the things he talks about is the 72-hour rule. That if you exercise today, if you eat healthy today, or if you eat junk food today, it's going to determine how you feel 72 hours from now, 3 days from now. So we tend to think that it's just the immediate, we feel like, a big blob on the couch today. It's actually what you're going to be dealing with 3 days from now. So keep that in mind. How about prepare for your future success? Exhaustion. Watch it. Let's put that under the awareness thing and patience. We're not going to solve this today. Do what you can, not too much, not everything you can, but the healthy level of what you can. And then back away. I religiously get 7 hours of sleep every night. I could not do my life without it. Having said that, I also get up at 5 a.m. Why? I do my best work first thing in the morning. The amount of work I can get done in 1 hour from 6 to 7 a.m. is probably 4 hours later in the afternoon. It's just the way I'm built, the way my system works, and I've learned to honor that. So really, really watch the exhaustion. Fuel, like if you poured water in your car's gasoline tank, you would expect problems. We pour crap into our bodies every single day and then complain that we feel lousy. That just doesn't make sense. But every now and then, again, usually because of something that comes from left field, didn't see it coming this last week. I swear everything I tried was an effort. Nothing was going smoothly. There's new processes we're putting into place. There's a bunch of different projects I have going on. It was just on and on and on. And eventually I just get to the point where I don't want to risk biting someone's head off. So even though that did happen at one point, I apologized for it. I will own that. What I do is I take what I call a Sandy day. That it's a be kind to Sandy day. And again, not what I'm expecting other people to do, but it's what I'm going to do. So I eat some good food. It probably involves taking a nap. On the last Sandy day that I took, one thing, the key point of the Sandy day or a take care of you day is that there is no pressure to do anything. You can do whatever you want, but you don't have to do anything, right? So, I mean, there's times I might shoot a video if it's something I enjoy. I didn't on this day. I actually did something else completely. I did something I didn't have time to do for the longest time. I actually watched some training videos. And I know everyone just groaned like, oh God, why would you do that? I really, really enjoy feeding my brain and my spirit. And I believe it's because it feels like I give out so much that I enjoy taking in. And the more I learn, the more I have to share with you. So to me, that's a total win-win. And I just sat back and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing anything else. I've wanted to watch this video. It was like an hour and a half. I wanted to watch this video for so long. I'm going to do that. And it just felt great. You know what happened? I ended up with a whole bunch of these ideas for future videos and podcasts. So again, taking future stress off myself. I don't need to figure out what I'm going to talk about. I just get to pick which one I'm going to talk about. And as I mentioned, I took a really good nap, which I'm not a nap person because I'm one of those people, if I take a nap today, my body's going to want me to take a nap tomorrow. But in this case, it was worth the challenge. I knew I was going to have the next day to break myself out of it. It was worth it. Bottom line, you control you. You don't control other people. And this is a learning curve. I know quite a few Indigenous people now that are getting so frustrated. They've learned all this stuff and they want healthy work environments, and they're getting really super upset that they haven't found the perfect work environment yet. We're not there yet. I don't even know if we ever will be because we're human. As long as we're working towards it. And by the way, if you're not in a healthy space, are you saying something about it? Are you doing something about it? Are you saying it to the appropriate people and not just complaining about it? Because guess what? Gossip doesn't work. Gossip is violence. That's internalized oppression. That's not helping anything. We got to be able to respect each other, talk it out with each other, apologize if need be, and move on. Judging each other will burn those bridges. So I wrote this little note here at the bottom. You control you. Make sure you value you. Make sure that you nurture you. And above all else, be kind to you. And I think that's a really good rule for any human being, whether you're dealing with racial battle fatigue or not. So what do you think? What did you think of this latest episode? By the way, huge shout out to all my new subscribers, to the subscribers that stuck with me, all of the encouraging comments, people that found my channel by accident and took the time to comment. Do you realize how beautiful you are? Because that's my fuel. If you want me to be able to continue doing the good work, if you think I'm doing good work, those comments, it's not, excuse the expression, you're not blowing smoke up my butt. I hope not. But as an Indigenous woman, especially when it's a non-Indigenous person saying they appreciate my work, there is no way I can read that and not think of my mom. Because my mom didn't live long enough to see this change, this respectful interaction, this learning and growing together. I'm not even sure if she could believe that it would ever happen. And that's how much has changed in one generation. We can do this. We just got to stay on the path. Patience, awareness, tenacity, and humility. And we're going to be really compassionate to those experiencing racial battle fatigue. Until next week, I love you. Take care. Bye bye.